So I'm Anna, I'm a data journalist, and for those who are less familiar with what that is, I'll probably take you through what I'm doing. It's a delight to be back here. I did have the privilege of being here in 2023. I couldn't really stand up at the time, but I'm feeling much better now, so that's great.
Can you speak louder, please?
Okay, yeah. So it's great to be back. So many exciting things happening at the ONS. I got given the ridiculously broad title of providing access to data and information. And I thought, oh, that's okay. ONS has a lot of information. So firstly, about me, I'm the journalism lead for new formats at ONS. And that's just, I have the privilege of bringing all of the data to life at ONS. We've got some fantastically talented statisticians doing some incredible research, and I help get that to the broadest audience possible. Before working at the ONS, I was actually a mainstream journalist working at the BBC as a data journalist. That wasn't very fashionable, and then the pandemic hit, and it was like, oh, okay, where are the nerdy grass people? Quick. So I was in that crew, and before then I worked on a local newspaper. So there's a lot of shoe leather, be doing a bit of shorthand, still there. So I have kind of these two halves in me, like I was the journalist doing a bit of data and everyone thinking that's weird, and now I'm the journalist in the data organisation where everyone's like, okay, the journalism is strange. So, we'll get there. So I joined the ONS website, I joined the ONS, and I was so excited because I thought, wait, I'm going to the ONS, there's all the data. And it's like a gold mine because we have so much stuff. I'm not going to read this out, but there's a lot, right? We do a lot of things. We have a lot of information. The only trouble is, I don't know about you, my usual experience of the ONS website is, that's an accurate picture of me. And I think what we've been so aware of is there's so much we can do to improve people's access to really critical data and information that affects their daily lives. So I thought I'd talk a bit about that. And so much of that starts with trying to find out what people actually need. We have, I think, 3.5 million pages on the ONS website. It's huge. Which ones are useful? How do we get people to them? What do people actually need from us? And how do we communicate that in the most effective way possible? Big undertaking. So, just to look at ways we listen, we're a government department, that means we're non-ministerial, so independent, but there are some things we have to do. GDP is kind of important for someone to calculate, we do that. We run a lot of webinars and forums. I don't have time today to go through the extensive stakeholder engagement we do with different teams. There's a media relations department that does a stunning job of looking at what the coverage is in the media of our work, whether it's accurate, whether it's not, how it's being received, what people are talking about us, and what that language is like, and what channel engagement there is. If you put something out on social media, what type of engagement did it do? What were the comments back? We have a tweeting statisticians network where we let statisticians respond to things on Twitter. Not controversial. And then there are lots of things you can do if you have a website. You can look at metrics and stuff like that, scroll depth, search terms. Now we're looking at what happens in AI snippets. And also, some people just let you know if they want stuff, they contact you. So if you're looking at this going like, Anna, I'm not in a government department, I'm just me. Don't worry, the principles are, the things you have to do, you talk to people outside, what people are saying about stuff, watching things happen. So we're paying attention to the news, we're paying attention to topics of public concern, and we're watching user behaviour in whatever form. And that might be as simple as me going to the media relations team, okay, on your crime release, what are the questions that you always get every single time in the inbox from journalists? And they go, every single time, no one understands this one table. I'm like, okay, what numbers are they after? We should probably put that in the main statistical release. If everyone's after that, why is it hard to find? And so you have a lot of information just from sort of the daily business of the organisation you can actually use to make our releases more effective. And then people contacting us directly. So these are the broad principles, really. But yeah, too much to mention. To give you an insight into how detailed this can get, this is a list of questions we did recently of what people actually are looking for, which is quite exciting. You can see some themes there to do with population, how many people live in the UK, how rich am I, that's interesting. Lots of birthdays. We do actually have a page called How Popular Is My Birthday? It does extremely well. How many people live in England? Oh, life expectancy, another big theme. How long will I live? When will I die? They're basically the same question, unfortunately. COVID is still a question. names, and then people asking for definitions. There was a longer list of these, like what is GDP, what is CPI, what is GVA? No one explains productivity. GVA, if you haven't met it, is gross value added. I'm still working on understanding that, so I can explain it to some other people later. Turns out there isn't really an explanation out there that's kind of nice. Same for life expectancy. I think when we did a discovery, we went through and said, okay, if we're not explaining it, who is explaining it? Are they explaining it in an accurate way? And if it's our number, shouldn't we be explaining it? Because we actually know how we made that. So lots of interesting things we found out. And to cut all of that immense amount of work short, basically the content that you make for non-experts has huge help for people who aren't actually experts or have time poor in different contexts. If you make something accessible to a public audience, you've also made it accessible for a policymaker or someone in a cabinet office who have 15 minutes to brief their minister, because they could get through that nice and easily because you didn't make it hard to get into. High impression queries should ideally get to the easy read content. So we're now looking at, if someone types in what is inflation and they land on the ONS website, did they land on an accessible page or did they land on a really complicated methodology that they're going to run away from? Mm-hmm. And that's the sort of thing that we're paying attention to, like when someone asks the question, what are content are they actually being served? And how do we help them get there? And you can actually answer that question simply. Productivity might be a complicated concept, but we're really well equipped to break it down because we get it. And if you join up the content, you can help people find what they need. So maybe the first place that someone lands isn't the information they need, but maybe you can make it really easy to discover it. One thing we looked at on this is we have a life expectancy calculator, also performing very well. Well done, us. We don't have anything on there about how we calculate life expectancy. And another question that's really common is, how do you calculate life expectancy? It's actually quite a complicated question. We should probably put a section underneath that explains it in accessible language. There's nothing stopping us do that, or we could link off to the other publications. Nothing stopping us doing that. It's like, my team owns that page, I should make it better. But you have to think about like what people actually need from the content in order to optimize it. Also very important, people might, you're talking about routes through a website, people can land on a page via search engine. And like I say, paying attention to what's surfaced in an AI overview, increasingly people aren't actually hitting the ONS website, they're being served their stats by a bot. And that's an interesting point of discussion because it's not always accurate, actually. You know, you ask it about the population, it'll serve you something from the 2011 census. And I'm thinking, it's been a whole other census since then, and some mid-year population estimates. And so often there's a problem because we might have two numbers and both numbers are correct. It depends what context you're after, and the search engine doesn't know that. So how do you serve that to people? So you're not just contending with your own site, you're contending with the outside infrastructure as well. And that's important to pay attention to. So some principles for that. But a whole part of this that I haven't even touched on is how to get the information to the public if they're not even coming to us at all. So as ONS, we know that most people don't actually hear about ONS from the ONS website, and that's totally fine by us. The reason being, there are loads of people who are communicating that data onwards, and it's usually the media. So we should make that really easy for them to do. We have absolutely no skin in the game in making, getting hits for our website because we're not a commercial organisation, we're not interested in that. What we're interested in doing is getting the information to the people. And if the people are going on their news websites, then the news websites don't want to have to spend ages because they're so time poor, and I've been there in the newsroom and you have no time. We should make it really easy. So you can see we make our tweets embeddable. This is a map that someone's lifted and put in a local news site. And here, this is Sky News. I was really happy with this one. I helped bring this article into the world. I did not do the analysis, but the chart that we had published had a data download underneath. And that's really important because some people don't want an ONS-style chart, they don't want a screenshot of that. What they want to do is take the data and reformat it in their own style and then republish it somewhere else. So you make that easy. And periodically we'll go around and we'll talk to newsrooms, from various industry contacts that we all have, and we'll go, hey, notice, to a particular one, I won't name names, but you usually embed our stuff. Notice you aren't doing that so much anymore. Do you have any issues? I said, yeah, we've changed our website system and we've got an issue embedding Twitter stuff. It's like, oh, okay, what will make your life easier? And so we're doing sort of direct research where we go in and say, do you find this useful? And they go, actually, yeah. Do you know, even if I'm not using your charts, the narrative title you put at the top that explains what the main takeaway is without the technical detail, use that all the time. I just fly through, read the chart titles, and then I nick that for my headline. And I'm like, great. Cool. And if they don't tell you that, what you can do is follow up the feedback, and we actually look through for all the pieces where we put lots of effort in and you can't do this for every release on the website, obviously, but for the ones my team do, we tend to go through and go, wait, everyone took that chart, they took this, they lifted this phrasing, and you're watching how frictionless was that, how easy was it, and we're doing an evaluation as we go. And then we feed back to the organisation, and that's helping on the communication. This is a bit more of an invested example, so we got wind that when there was a height of the cost of living crisis, we worked out from previous people at the BBC, we keep stealing each other, right? Like, I used to work there, other people used to work there, a lot of cross-pollination, and so we knew that they were planning to try and do an inflation calculator. And we kind of knew that because we also wanted to make one, right? And we're the same people, we just sit on either side of the civil service. And so we got in touch and we said, hey, if we build an inflation calculator, do you want to host it as well? It'll have to be on our website because it needs to be equal access to everybody. But these are the parameters we can work within. They went, excellent. And so we started a conversation with the analysts, and the analysts were like, we need this many categories. Inflation's very complicated. And went back to the BBC and said, no, we can't have that many categories. No one will tick them, right? And you broker between the two organisations. And eventually we ended up with this huge, really successful product. That meant that loads of people could see how inflation was affecting them. BBC got to say they're working with the ONS, they know their numbers are really credible. We get really high public engagement with our content, everybody wins. This was, I say 3.5 million views, it's probably more than that, that's a year old, but we don't mind because it's still going. We also made this one, shopping prices comparison tool, and that was to show people what's in the basket. And this is just a really wonderful way of personalising numbers for people and telling them how they affect them, because otherwise inflation is just something abstract. Where if you know that actually that number really affects me, then that's how it comes to life. This is an example in wording. I really like what Gillian said, I've lost Gillian, but about being specific, not using jargon and clear language, absolutely the same principles. I had a piece we were doing on hybrid working, and this is a fascinating subject, right? Because the biggest point of contention that I can see with it, just as a human being, is that are people from home working as hard as people in the office, right? That's what everyone wants to know. And we had time use data comparing people in the office and people working at home or hybrid and so on. And the results were not statistically significant, right? But I can't use the word statistically insignificant, significant or not. I can't use the word confidence interval, I can't use the word sample, I'm sitting there going, if I put any of those words, it isn't going to carry. I have to do it in the same paragraph because Google will lift the paragraph, right, if someone Googles it. I have to do it in maximum 3 lines. So I wrote the whole article and then spent an hour trying to write that bit, right? But it worked because the Daily Mail lifted it. And that was my success metric, was that if it is clear enough, then the journalist doesn't have to work hard to translate it because I've made sure it's accurate at the point that they can just take it. And journalists are not trying to get it wrong. Trust me, if you've got your name on something, you really do not want to have egg on your face, right? You want to get this right. If I ring up journalists to user testing, they immediately go like, did I get everything right? Right? And I'm like, yes, you did. I was just interested if you considered this. And so it really helps to sort of anticipate that misunderstanding. I think we've heard a lot at these meetings, particularly from Professor Sir David Spiegelhalter, actually, about anticipating misunderstanding. And this was a bit of an example of, I think someone could get entirely the wrong impression from that chart if I don't immediately qualify it. And so I'm going to have to do that. Yes, we're now trying to be more specific with wording and caveats, such as we're trying to eradicate the phrase used with caution, slowly. It's very difficult. And one of the ways we're doing this is trying to trial this type of section and release. This is a pattern from the NHS, you might recognise this. It was very successful. People know how to behave, they know how to do it, they know what to do, what not to do. And there are some cases where, and it's not always this easy, with our statistics we can say, please use them this way, please don't use them this way. This is what they're good for, this is what they're not so good for. And that's a pattern that we're trying to adopt now. We've done extensive user testing on it. Do people understand it? Are people using it? In this example, this is one of the early ones that we did for the smoking release. I actually spotted some media coverage of it, and then I rang up the data journalist who covered it and went, did you see that section? One of them had, the one that had went, yeah, I did, but I got really confused because you said don't use these two together, but I had to make a chart with them both on. Was that all right? Could you be more specific next time? I was like, oh yeah, I saw you did that. He's like, I also saw that you you use like the 1 year average run the 5 on, which you recommend. He said, yeah, that's just a template I have to use. Would have been better practice, but what can you do? That was my editor. And you're having like this really open conversation, right? Like journalists are just people. But it's really interesting to see that user behaviour. Like some people might not use this section, they might do, but then you made it as easy as possible to get it to, and it's not have to read this crazy methodology and then go, I think it's okay to do that. Like, so no, just make it really easy. So that's something we're trying. So all of these things together, I think one thing that has come out a lot from these meetings is this idea of trustworthiness. So if you have an idea that ONS is burying the real message before because they have an agenda, then clear language would really help do that. So you can see here I've got the things we do. So that idea of personalising numbers to match their reality means that people will trust the numbers more because it actually matches what they're seeing. You know, they're like, well, I'm still struggling with the cost of living. And you're like, yes, you fit here. And if you make it discoverable as possible to the less technical users, then people are empowered to check the original sources. So in the next section, I'm going to talk a bit about how we have exploratory tools to do things. How am I doing on time?
We are quite tight. How much longer?
I'll go really fast.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's just an example of it. So, we do things to find out yourself. This is a lightning tool. Please do talk to me if you want more information. We made a thing to communicate uncertainty. So, for population projections, put in the inputs, see how the inputs affect the assumptions to see the thing. That was really fun. We had a little note saying you're outside the bounds of what we think is possible. And you know what? It was great. Tons of information. Really powerful. We did it for subnational because that worked so well. We also have a service now called Explore Local Statistics where we've improved access to subnational data. Really, really powerful. It was developed for policymakers. We actually used it for school children recently, which was interesting. A load of sixth formers came up with policy recommendations really successfully because it's well designed. Housing is one thing you really want at a local level because you don't care about the houses far away, you care about where you live and where you're buying. So now we have local housing pages. And we also have customizable geography. So you can draw an area and return the data for that. And all of these have been user-driven. They've been thinking about, some of them are just fun ideas. This was a fun idea. And we're like, actually, that could be really useful because I could use that. And then you've kind of cross-validated it. Some of them are like just thinking about the intuitive use that people need from data. And I think I managed to do that in the last 10 seconds.
Perfect.
Oh yeah, we're also improving the ONS website, slowly. Right, give us time, it's a big ship, there's lots going on. If you want to see the new designs and let us know what you think about them, you are users, please do test, and let us know what you think. That's it.